Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is 3-Chord Dave. Today we're answering that age-old question. Is a Chibson better than a Gibson? Hello, you beautiful person. Thanks for joining me. Yes, we're talking about Chibsons. Are they better than Gibsons or is it all just a load of bullshit? We'll find out. We're going to talk about it, all kinds of things. There's a lot of reasons, and I've had a lot of experience with Chibsons, so I'll tell you my thoughts and see what you think. Now, just bear in mind, okay, this is my personal opinion. You can leave your personal opinion in the comment section below, and let's all be grown-ups about it and not call each other names, okay, dipshit? Sorry, that's just a little joke. Hit the like button if you like the video. If you don't like it, hit that dislike button, and then you'll think you're a big boy and everything's great. And subscribe if you want to. Now, Chibsons. Just in case you don't know, you're here by mistake. Chibson is a Chinese-made knockoff Gibson. I said the word knockoff. It's 2 words. But some people will say they're not knockoffs, they're not counterfeits, they're not fakes. They are. Let's be honest. They're fake. They're not the real deal. They're counterfeit. They're fake. They're knockoff. There's no other way of saying it. They are. Now, in some places, it's not illegal to own or to buy a Chibson guitar or a knockoff guitar or a knockoff Louis Vuitton bag or a Gooch, whatever they have. You can buy whatever you want. You can own whatever you want. You can play whatever you want. Do whatever you want with it, except sell it, of course. And you can't represent it as the real thing. But, and here's where it becomes tricky. Some people are starting to say they're not counterfeit, they're not knockoffs, there's nothing wrong with these kind of things. And listen, I've owned many a Chibson, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, something like that over the years. My first one I bought in 2009, I thought it was great when I bought it. It was a Slash Gold Top back in 2009, 2010. And I loved it. I thought it was a great guitar. Came with a case and everything. Beautiful. And then I got to know a little bit more about guitars, what goes into them, what doesn't go into them, how they work, how they don't work, that sort of stuff. And I realized, hey, this guitar ain't so good. And then I've had a few more down the years, and like I've seen them get better. They're better than they used to be, but they're still what they are. And we'll talk about one of the main things here, which is quality. So we're going to talk about Chibsons and what goes into them. And in my experience, having owned quite a few and taken them apart and literally cut them in half and all kinds of things like that down the years, I can tell you there's reasons why these guitars are cheap, and it's not because they just want to give the consumer a better product at a better price. Just in case you were thinking that's what it was. That's not what it is. So a Gibson guitar comes out tomorrow and it's $5,000, and then a week later the Chibson version is available and it's $250. Are you going to tell me that they did not cut some corners to make that $250 guitar? Because that's 20 times less expensive than the Gibson. Now, Gibsons are genuinely overpriced right now. Every time they bring out something, you're like, where did they pluck that number from? That's ridiculous. And Epiphone's getting more and more expensive. It does drive people towards these Chibsons and other things, because people want the guitars that look cool, and they want to look like Kirk Hammett for some reason, and they want to look like Slash, and they want to look like Mike McCready and all those kind of people, because they want to look cool when they're playing their guitars. So they want those ones that look like those things and other people. So buying the Chibsons, that's one reason people give. I want to buy the rare thing, but it's too expensive. Okay, you can kind of get that. But bear in mind, they're using the cheapest woods that they can find. There's no quality control done on these woods. There's no drying process. There's no consideration given to, is the wood ready? It's like, is the wood there? Is their selection process. Whereas with Gibson, PRS, Fender, all the big boys who also get knocked out. Well, by the way, I should mention, we're just talking today about the Gibson style Chibsons, but they choose wood. They buy wood years in advance. They, put it through a whole treatment and a process to get it ready to become a guitar. These Chibson guys, they do not do that, my friend. In fact, quite a lot of them are made out of scrap pieces of wood that are glued together, run through a planer, and then just made into a guitar. It's that simple. You could literally take the veneer, and there's veneers on both sides usually of the Chibson. Take the veneer off it, and you could be looking at 7, 8, 9 part guitars, and that's if you're lucky. There's no quality control here at all. The parts that they put on them are usually the worst of the worst. The tuners are usually terrible, especially I don't like that they're making fake Grovers, and they do make fake Grovers. They're not as good as real Grovers. They're better than the tuners they used to put on, I'll give them that. A lot of the times they're plastic nuts cut with a plastic spoon. They're not very great in that department. The frets are made out of the cheap material. They do not spend money on these parts. They try to get away with as little to spend as possible. The pickups are usually terrible, but they're getting better. I do have to admit they are getting better with their pickups. The wiring though is usually very cheap wiring and not done very well also. And the potentiometers they use, no matter if they're mini pots or regular size pots, are usually the cheapest variants that they can get their hands on. Pots are cheap, so like if they were going to put the money in, they would, yeah. So anyway, listen, if you're buying a Gibson, bear in mind you're going to have to replace almost every single part on the guitar in terms of hardware. So like your bridge, your pots, your pickups, all the wiring, your nut is probably going to have to be replaced as well, your tuners, and you want to just, from past experience, just check that there's a truss rod in there, because there might not be, and in that case your guitar becomes an ornament. From personal experience, that can still happen. And here's the thing, right? Gibson has this kind of quality control issue hanging over its head for a long time. And people are always giving out about Gibson quality control. I've made videos about their quality control. I have friends who've literally got guitars and I've laughed hard about how bad they are leaving the factory. There's been some really bad QC issues. I think they're getting better because I am hearing less and less stories, but I'm still hearing stories, but less and less of them. I personally never had a bad Gibson guitar out of the box. So maybe I'm one of the lucky ones, but that's just my personal experience. But if I did, and as my friends have had, bad Gibson comes out of the box, it goes back in the box, it goes back to Gibson, or it goes back to the retailer, because there's warranties behind these kind of things. There's, laws and everything that they've got to follow, these people who sell you these things. So you send it back, you either get a big discount, or you get it repaired, or you get your money back and you buy something else, or maybe you get it just replaced with one that is better. Those warranties, those playability warranties, are in place on all the big brand guitars. You don't have a warranty with Chibson. You might get your guitar replaced if it arrives broken or something. You might not. You might get 3 months of running around now trying to find a seller. Because what they do is they sell guitars for like 2 months, and then they have a load of complaints built up, and they close down that business and they open another one, because they don't have to register for businesses. They just have to register for an account on a website, and then they continue selling guitars. Same person, same place, same thing, same deal. But in 2 months' time, they repeat the process. You can't ever find them, but sellers, they're starting selling YouTube now. They're doing the same thing. They're selling for a couple of months and they're moving to a new profile and selling again. So be very careful, because you've got no warranty, no comeback. You might get lucky and get a return. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, you got to pay for the return though, which is going to cost you more money than the guitar's worth, let's be honest. Something also that I think is worth mentioning is, and some people are going to hate me when I say this, but I'm sorry, it is true. When you get a Gibson box delivered to your door, and you open the box, and you open that case for the first time, and you get that new Gibson smell, it's intoxicating. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of those experiences as a guitarist. You're like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. I don't know what it is. It's weird. It's probably the chemicals in the nitro, but it does. It is a great thing. So, what I think when you get a Chibson, and again, I've had this recently, you open up that yellow tape on the polystyrene coffin that the guitar comes in, and you rip open the polystyrene bag, and you see that cheap cable that comes with all of them that is useless, and your Allen wrench, and then you look at the guitar and you're like, oh, it doesn't look too bad. And then you see the cheap plastic with the bad coverings, and you're like, well, I can replace those and stuff like that. You will be thinking in your head when you get a Chibson, I hope it works. Like 9 times out of 10, when you plug in your Gibson, your new Gibson, it's going to work. So you're not worried about that. At least that's what I think. The history of the company as well, the feeling of picking up that new Gibson with that new Gibson smell, there's something about it, it's special. Honestly, you don't get it with other guitars. You don't get it with Epiphones or say Harley Bentons or whatever. It's something from a Gibson. So from that point of view, I think there's just something you're never ever going to get. You've got security in the product. If it's bad, you send it back. You've got that Gibson smell and that Gibson thing. And I give Gibson shit. I'm not brainwashed by Gibson. I don't think they're at the top of their game or anything. I give them shit here all the time. Would I buy a Gibson over a Chibson? Every day of the week. Every day of the week. We got to be realistic here. These are knockoff guitars, and when someone's making a knockoff product, they're only in it for the profit. So they are making them as cheaply as possible, getting as much money as they can, and giving zero security or backup to that product. So be very careful. Now, having said that, I've bought Chibsons. Go into it knowing what you're doing. You're buying a knockoff. It may get stopped by customs, at which point you probably have no comeback. You are probably going to have to pay an import tax. Not always, but in Europe here you will. And the other thing is the quality is probably not going to be very good. Now, there's people out there lately saying that their new Chibsons is the greatest guitar since sliced bread. And I want to say sliced bread was never a great guitar in the first place. But also, you can get a good playable Chibson with some work. I've never had one perfect out of the box. The best one I've had has been the more recent one, the Dave Grohl DG335, which you can check out up here. It's not a bad guitar. It needs new pickups, it needs new pots, it needs new tuners, it needs new frets probably, it needs a new nut. And that's just to see, is it okay? But in terms of looks great, feels great, the neck on it's really nice. I like playing with it, but I play it unplugged mostly when I do play it now because it doesn't sound great when it's plugged in. Anyway, these are my thoughts. I just wanted to put something out there and say, look, buy a Chibson if you want, but don't compare it to a Gibson. It's not the same thing by a long shot. And I hate to say this, but I kind of think it's really funny. But if you're going to buy a guitar, play authentic. My name's Street Chord Dave. I'll be back with another guitar related video very soon. But until then, my friend, take care.